Okay, so we're going to be talking about this awesome framework that I have learned about called Hydra. If people have trouble following along, just let me know. Let's be honest, it's past midnight. It's going to be a little silly. If people have questions, feel free to raise your hand. Feel free to interject. Do all that stuff. If y'all have brought a laptop to kind of follow along, that's great. Go to hydra.ojac.xyz on your laptops, I think. Some people have said that it's all right on their phones.
It's kind of a pain to edit the code, but...
It's a little bit of a pain to edit the code maybe, but besides that, it seems like it's probably solid. So let's start there. That's where we're going to be starting. Hydra.ojac.xyz. Okay?
Ojac is O-J-A-C-K.
I know Ojac.
Mm-hmm. So when you first go to that website, you'll be presented with kind of like a helpful little menu. It is helpful, but we're just going to ignore that for now. Let's just exit out of that. Okay. And by default, it will present you with some code that someone else has written to make some kind of cool visual on their website. Whatever this code is, it's totally randomized. I have no idea what you're seeing when you go into this website, but we're going to kind of like, we're going to erase everything, and then we're going to kind of like start at like a similar base. Okay, so once you get to this point, exit out of the window, select everything, and then erase it because it's garbage. They don't know what they're doing. You're a genius. They're not. So we're going to do...
This is a real question.
What? Okay, yes.
Should we like control plus so the text is bigger?
Oh, yes. I would love, yeah. If people are having difficulty seeing, we can absolutely control plus. Let me know if you're having trouble seeing. Okay, so we're going to do something, we're going to start off with something very simple. OSC.out, okay? So I'm going to, on this website, there's a few shortcuts. If you click Alt, Enter, you'll run the code that is on your line. Okay? So OSC.out, that means oscillator. And OSC stands for oscillator, and it sends it out to the main screen. OSC takes some arguments. I don't know how familiar with coding people are. Sometimes you can specify what details to do. Sometimes if you don't specify those details, they'll just assume a default. And that's what's happening now. I haven't specified any actual values to OSC, and so it's just assuming the default values. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few other values that I can pass it. Let's start with relatively easy, 0.1, all right? And then I'm going to run it again with Alt, Enter. You want to press those both at the same time. Okay, well that's just white, which is maybe a little confusing, but what's actually happening is that like the white pattern is stretched so far that you can just see white. Let's go a little bit smaller. Let's do OSC1. Still pretty spread out. Let's go to OSC10. Okay, well now we see a pattern. We see that it's moving slowly. Oh my God, yes. Oh. Okay, so we have OSC10, and that is this pattern that we see here. Let's go even more extreme. OSC 100. Oh, well now there's a bunch of little guys. Let's do OSC 1000. Okay, this is a little too much. This is getting a little too crazy. All right, so let's go. Yeah. Yes.
It is like
the full period of it like pi, or what is like a single iteration?
Yeah, so the period of any periodic functions in this code base is pi-based, not degree-based, so just be aware of that. OSE is also, I guess, like radians-based, not degree-based, so just to be aware of that. But that's a little more complicated than I was going to get to. Let's roll back. Let's go back to OSE 10, which feels like kind of like chill level to be at, right? OSE has a few more arguments. You can say OSE 0.01 as the second argument. If people are not familiar with programming, one of the things that's happening is OSE is a function here. It's called a function, and it's like a thing you can provide values to. And then the parentheses is how you provide the appropriate values to that thing. So the first value we provide is 10. The second value we're about to provide is 0.01. So let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks kind of the same. So let's start. Let's go up. Let's go up to 0.05. Oh, this is a little faster. Okay, well let's go up to 1. Okay, it's even a little faster. Okay, so the thing that I'm interpreting from this is like, oh, the second argument is speed. This is like a kind of good practice to get into, just like figuring out like how different functions work, because Hydra has a number of these functions, and you can kind of play around with it. So let's kind of chill out, and let's. Oh my God, hold on. Okay, so it was cool. That's great for you to point out. So if you don't provide a value to a function, it will assume a default value. So for OSE, for that third argument, for that third value, it will assume 0. Okay? And that will just make it this black and white. Okay? So let's slowly go up. Let's slowly change that. We're going to start at 0. Let's go up to 0.1. Okay, well, that's getting a little bit more colorful. Let's getting a little pizzazz to it. Let's try 0.2. Okay, more focused. Let's try 0.5. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Okay, even more color. And then finally, let's double that, and let's go to 0.1. Very colorful, very rainbow. So this third argument, this third value that we can provide to OSE is like kind of like almost like a colorfulness value, right? So that's how OSE works. That's how the oscillator works. If
anyone is having trouble reproducing this, please raise your hand.
Yes.
Can we do 256?
For
Cool.
which one?
256.
250. Okay, I'm not sure that that's exactly how it works, but yeah. The thing that's great about Hydra is you can type whatever you want into it, and it will just like give it its best shot. I don't know what 256 is going to do, but it's going to give it its best shot. Gay rights! That's fucking... Let's go! Let's go, homosexual. Yeah. Okay, so what's going on here is this OSE function. It's called OSE. It stands for oscillator. OSE is considered a source. It's like a basic form where information, the visual, can come from. And OSE is not the only way you can do it. You can do OSE. Oh my gosh. That was wrong. There's a few other functions. We're going to try noise. So which shows a noise pattern on this thing. A noise pattern, similarly to OSC, it can take parameters. Let's try noise 10. Okay, that looks exactly the same, so that didn't do anything. Let's add another value. Okay, that's going really fast, so it's kind of a bad vibe. Let's add another value. Okay, the third value doesn't do anything. But I'm going to explain where to kind of find this information. It's on the fucking Hydra GitHub. I don't know if people are familiar with GitHub, if you are not familiar with coding, but GitHub is a way to find out more information about the code you are using. So Hydra is this thing called a library, and the library provides all these functions like oscillator, noise. I'll show you another one. Oh my gosh. Wow, look at that pattern. How did I know that exists? Well, it's because I went to the GitHub, and I went to a link that says complete list of functions. Boom. Okay, well, that's... That was devastating. That was... I cannot explain how bad that was. Okay, so we're going to try and Google the Hydra functions, and then hopefully that will result in something better. Oh, okay, so here's a website that will show all the functions available in Hydra with kind of an interesting visual to go with it, and the code that showed that visual. So this is a good resource, to be honest, even though it's kind of randomized and separate from everything. So this is all right. This is a good resource. And then on the GitHub, I swear to God, if this is also a dead link. Oh my God. No, oh my God. Okay, well, it's not a very well-maintained project. I'm sorry. Okay, well, if you look up... Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is pretty rough. There are some just in the README, but the...
If you go to GitHub and you...
We're going to go to the main repository, hopefully. And then hopefully that will lead to... No, this isn't it either. Oh my God. Okay, well, we're going to go to Hydra Synth. And then we're going to go to Hydra.
So while you're playing with the Voronoi function, it takes in a couple different parameters. So the first one is the size of those funny shapes, and the second one is the speed at which they change, if you want to play around with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hydra.project.xyz/functions.
/function. This is pretty good. Okay, I'll be honest. This is a pretty solid one. No, this is also not a good one because it's not showing. Okay, I do think this is kind of important, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it.
It's good to just
Yeah, so just to explain to everyone else, there is a complete list of functions somewhere with like the arguments to each function, but
Try the Hydra repo, and then the archive directory, and then funcs.me, which seems promising.
will you send me that? Yeah. Will you send me that in Discord? Because I have no idea what you just said.
If you go to the main page and scroll all the way down, it's
I swear to God, open source developers, I'm gonna kill myself.
it's right. They get paid.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, whoever provided that, but this is it. This is the, yeah, so it's got these categories. It's got, so sources is where you want to go to start with sources. It tells you the arguments that you can provide to noise, gradient, etc. So I really do think that this is a very important resource for this, which is why I kind of belabored this point of finding it, and why I'm so frustrated that it's not easy to find. But now we can move on. Okay, so there's all sorts of outputs, like oscillator that you saw, noise. This one here is a Voronoi. It's a type of pattern, and you can also import all sorts of patterns from the internet. Like you can provide it image URL that you can manipulate further. So the big thing that's cool about Hydra is that you can kind of chain interesting patterns. So that's the next part we're about to go into. So let's keep on looking at these functions, and we see all these other options besides source. So sources is kind of like the core way that you do things, but you can also do things like brightness. All right, let's do that. Let's Voronoi. We have this Voronoi pattern, and then we're going to add a little bit of brightness. Oh, way too bright. That was bad. Okay, this is better. Or we can do negative values. Woo! Boom. Okay. Wow, so sexy. No, actually not sexy. I'm giving you little teasers before you get to the sexy stuff, because that was not sexy at all. Okay, so we have these color patterns. We also have these geometry patterns that can do some kind of fun stuff. An easy one that's easy to get excited about, I think, is collide, which is short for kaleidoscope. Wow, so symmetric. And you can provide it with a value to describe the symmetry. So this one is three-way symmetric. There's 3 symmetric versions of it. But you can go to whatever number you want, even as far as... That's basically just a circle. Not so exciting. So there are those functions. Those are under geometry, and you can just kind of play around with them. I'll go through a few of them. There's repeat, for example. It just repeats it. It just kind of repeats the pattern. If you make more, it does it more. The first value is x-axis, the second value is y-axis. Boom, there's more of them. Okay, whatever. Okay, the sexy stuff comes in once you start getting into the modulators. So the modulators are a little complicated. They're more complex shaders, if you're familiar with the term shaders, which means that like based on one pattern that you've been given, it's going to do something weird to the new pattern, okay? So let's start pretty simple. We have this Voronoi pattern. Let's start really simple. This is what a Voronoi looks like. And then if you remember, there's what an oscillator pattern looks like. This is what an oscillator pattern looks like. So what a modulate function is going to do, it's going to combine those things. So we're going to do modulate dot, well no, not dot, oscillator, and then we're just going to put that in the other function. And it's like, oh, whoa, okay. It kind of like makes it like a little trippy. It kind of like gives it this pattern that you can kind of see, like there's these ups and downs, the way that the oscillator went from like dark to bright. And there's all sorts of patterns like this. There's modulate scale. There's modulate scale. Hold on. Unexpected token. Okay, hold on. Some of the modulates require more parameters, so I'm just gonna kind of play around until I find some ones that are good. Rotate. Let's do modulate rotate. Oh no. Sorry. Okay, so if you do Control Enter, it just runs the string. If you do Alt Enter, it runs the whole thing. So you can kind of play around with it. And then the thing that's also fun about it is that you can layer some of these effects. So, you know, maybe I think that oscillate is a little boring. Maybe I just want to do like oscillate. I'm just going to throw another modulate on this oscillator that gets thrown into this other modulator. So let's try that. Does some different stuff. If we want to maybe add some color to it, we can add like some hues, which we can do from like the functions that are available here. And also we can do that from the actual sources. So let's go to Voronoi. Scale, speed, blending. If you see blending, that means that that's kind of the color. So let's do scale. So we've already provided scales and speed. Let's do blending. 5. What? Oh, it's a comma. It needs a comma. 5. It's changing a little bit. Let's see how it looks. It's looking a little more interesting. So you can play around with layering effects. I'm just going to do some effects that I think are pretty solid at this point. So I think a collide is usually pretty solid to make something look better. Looks a little bit more interesting. You know, you can just kind of throw more modulates on it. And this is one of the things I think is really fun about Hydra. You can just like kind of play around with it, and you can kind of just see like, oh, this is like what is happening. You can just like experiment with it a little bit. Yeah.
So like, if the third argument of oscillate is related to color, and I don't care about the other two, is there a way for me to just be like, I don't care about the other two?
You do still have to specify the other two. That's a weird quirk of JavaScript, which this is all in. So you'd have to look up what the default is, and then you'd have to, you know, just set them to the defaults, unfortunately. Yeah. Yes?
The order of functions that you like apply one after the other, because that matters, right?
Yes, that matters a lot. So if you, yeah, so I'm gonna take out this collide. Yeah, fuck collide. And this is what it looks like beforehand. All right. But then if I add it before, oh my gosh, I don't know why. So what it's going to do is it's going to apply the collide function first, and then it's going to try to apply this modulate rotate. So let's see what that looks like. I'm not sure.
Wait, guys. Whoa.
Not all that different. So one of the things that's relatively easy to do in Hydra and in JavaScript in general is you can put 2 backslashes, and that comments sections out. So you can be like, oh, what does it look like without this modulate rotate? Well, it looks like this. And then if we put it back in, well, this is what it looks like. We can also do that with more specific versions. So if we separate this out into its own row, we can just be like, oh, what if the oscillator wasn't modulated? What would that look like? Not all that different, apparently. Oh, wait. Sorry, say that again? Yeah, it just wouldn't be that different. Oh my gosh. All right. I'll kind of go from here to a more fun direction. For me personally, I think Voronoi is not super fun, but just because I think that fun is a good part of like learning how to do things. I think oscillator is one of the more fun things to work with. So let's start with oscillator out. Pretty straightforward. Let's add some more parameters here. Okay, so low values will be very slow. Let's make it bigger. Okay, that's reasonable to me. Let's give it a speed of 1, because you need to give it some kind of speed. That's too fast for me, so I'm gonna make it slower. If I give it 0, it's just gonna be black and white. I don't want that. I want it to be a little bit more colorful. This is feeling a little bit more colorful to me. And then I'm gonna kind of like start layering on this. I'm gonna throw out, oh, hey, let's put a kaleidoscope on it. Yes, all right, cool. Now we got this kind of like weird kaleidoscopic pattern. And I'm gonna be like, okay, well, what if we do something a little bit more fun and ahead of time? So I'm gonna throw in a modulate noise. I don't know what this is gonna look like. I'm just trying it out. Okay, well that looks a little bit more interesting. I'm maybe going to try out, looping this. That looks a little bit more interesting, and you can kind of just like kind of play around. And I think that this is the thing that's really fun about Hydra. What am I missing here? So this works.
You need to provide something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's maybe a little interesting. Let's try it. Let's throw the noise. Okay. Let's try giving it. Yeah. So you can play around with it a little bit. Let me look at my notes to see what I've missed. So modulation functions. Okay. So functions are a fun thing. So. In addition to providing the static values, you can also provide it with functions that will kind of change. So as an example, I'm going to provide it with this function. If any of you are familiar with JavaScript, hopefully you will recognize this format. It's just creating a function that kind of like spits out this value. It's gonna run that value every time it's run. So if I do like math.random, it's gonna provide a random value for that every time that it's run. So let's see what that looks like. It's gonna be chaotic. Yeah, too much. Let's not do that. Let's do something a lot more reasonable. Let's do math. Let's do the function. And then let's do math.sign. And then do time. Time is a global variable that gets provided to the JavaScript, and it will just kind of like oscillate. So let's try that. That's too much. That's still too much. Let's make that a little slower. Oh, okay. No. But you're starting to see it. Okay. So, what it's doing is it's slower.
Make it stop. Stop so Jeff gets the math.
It does help to be good at math to use this, but what's happening is we have this function that kind of like the speed goes up and down is what's happening, and let's try it with reduced like intensity. It's going to be fast, and then it's going to be slow down, and then you're not really feeling that. Let's try putting it in parentheses. Okay, so it's very fast. No, this is just very fast.
Yeah.
But it's not so intensely fast, hopefully. Oh! Okay.
Now it's easy.
Yeah, now this is like relatively not so crazy.
Tangent.
Let's do a simpler one. We're not going to do it with this function. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. It's so reasonable. Oh my gosh, so reasonable. Wow.
It's too reasonable. Way too reasonable.
Okay. Well, we're going to add this rotate function. And then we're going to add the same kind of function to that where it was just math.sign. And then it's going to be time. And we're going to, let's see how that goes. So what we expect to see is we're going to expect it to rotate, but it's going to rotate really fast sometimes, and then it's going to rotate really slow sometimes. And it's going to kind of bounce back between the two modes. So let's see how it goes. Okay, not really fast, but you can see that it's faster sometimes and then it's slower sometimes, which is actually what I wanted. So, I'm a genius. Let's make it a little faster. Let's make it even faster. Yeah. So this is just to demonstrate like one of the things that you can kind of play around with. You can kind of like make the rate at which values change kind of vary with a function. So rotate is kind of a weird one, especially when I have all this other stuff on top of it. I'm going to comment out all this other stuff, and then it will probably be more straightforward what it's doing. Whoa! Okay, and then it bounces back. And then it bounces back. Yeah. Let's see what else I have in my notes. Okay, so those are functions. We also have arrays, which is like you can provide values with arrays. If you're familiar with computer programming, you know you can provide. You can have values that are multiple values. So you can provide. You can say square bracket. You can say 0, 1, 2, 3, and that's a list of values from 0, 1, 2, 3. And then if you do this, it'll go, okay, so it'll start at 0, and it'll jump to these other values that are in the array. That's another thing that's available in Hydra. And then, kind of combining that with the other thing I just explained, you can have any of these values be functions as well, and it'll kind of like jump around naturally with those things. Hello, yes, questions?
Is there a default time between the number jumps in arrays, or can you set that?
Yes. There is a default time interval. So I believe by default it is set to 120 beats per minute. But let's find it together. It's on this GitHub page. Okay. Well, it's a little annoying to find. So if you I'll just say if you dig into this GitHub page enough, you will be able to find a value that you can set that will allow you to set the tempo of those changes in the array. Okay, well, it's somewhere in there. I'm sorry. Okay, so just moving forward. So beyond arrays, there's feedback. Feedback is kind of cool because you can kind of feed the same input into the same thing. So far, we've always been doing to out, and that's how we've been putting that the pattern out into the world. But actually, we don't need to say just like print it. We can say like, oh, out to a specific interface. So we're going to do OSC out to O1, and then we're going to do render O1. This is basically the same thing as just saying like OSC out O1, but one of the reasons that you might want to do this is you might want to be like OSC out, you don't want to render O1, maybe you want to do OSC 1, 1, rotate math.pi divided by 4. I'm just kind of riffing here. And then modulate O1. It can refer back to the texture that I kind of created earlier on, and then it can be like out. Okay. Well, let's
Is it just rendering O1?
hold on. It's sometimes the web interface it kind of gets stuck on things sometimes. So we're just gonna refresh it. Okay, this looks like what I expect, which is just like a very slow pattern, and then we're just gonna do, wow, caps lock. Oh, yeah.
You need to call.
I think you need to source.
So then you're calling them.
No, I don't think you need to call it. Well, let's do something more complicated. Okay. Let's verify that this modulate is doing anything. No. Okay. Well, let's go here. Let's go here. Oh, this isn't doing anything either. Oh my god. Trackpads. Okay. This is giving this. Let's give it a noise. This is what this looks like. And if I modulate it across this, I don't think source is what I want here, actually. Oh, I'm not doing out 1. Okay. Well, I'm gonna look at the code first, and then. But you can. All right. The point I'm trying to make is that you can feed things out into other things. So we're just going to use this code that is in here, and then render a 1. Okay, so we're going to do this one at a time. Okay, so we're going to do this, and then we're going to do render O0. Okay, so that looks like that. Oh, well, it's already doing this modulate. Okay, let's take this out. All right, it's doing this, which is very straightforward. O1 is O1 is similarly straightforward. It's going up. So this one's going this sideways. This one's going up. And then if we say modulate the two of them together, it's going to combine them. Yeah. No. Yes. Yes. So you can combine various outputs from various parts to create various new effects. So yeah. I don't know where I'm doing for time. Oh, I got 15 minutes left. So let's do something a little silly, something fun. Questions?
Can you create a feedback loop from an output back into itself?
Yes. Actually, creating a feedback loop is one of the cooler things you can do in Hydra. So, for example, let's go back to this first one. Yeah, that's why. So you have this thing. And you have modulate O1, but why modulate versus something else? Why not modulate versus itself? So you get kind of this weird effect. Let's try various values. Okay. So yeah, you can do all these kind of weird things. So I'm actually gonna show off an example. Really quickly, while we have 15 more minutes to show off some dumb shit. So you can this GitHub page will show you how to do this, but you can also kind of load various images and various things that are just available online. So let's start with this. So it's loading this Wikimedia page. You can do it with this S1 init image out. It's this thing. I don't know what this is. But let's we can modulate it against itself, right? We can hold on. Well, let's if we modulate it against itself, it's not going to be super exciting because it's static. So let's add a little bit of flavor. Let's add a scroll x 0. Oh boy. 1 dot out. Unexpected number because that is not a number. Yeah. Oh, yes, this is O0. Well, also I have to render O0. That's the other thing, because it defaults to rendering O1. Okay, so it's moving. Let's add modulate O0. It's a little fuzzier. It's not super exciting. It's not amazing. Let's make this slower. You can see it being a little bit fuzzy, but let's modulate it against actually S1. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting effect, right? Because you can see the effect that the modulate takes. You can see the shape of it kind of like outlined in the actual image. And if I say something like, if I modify it to say like S1, let's see, let's just add another scroll. That's actually super easy. Let's scroll it in the Y direction this time. Point 1. Scroll Y is not a function.
You need to do sort
Yeah. Okay, so now you see kind of this outline of this like same shape moving upward slowly. Thank you so much, Chad. And then let's make it faster. And you can kind of see that like this thing is happening. So you can kind of see how this goes. I'm just gonna try and like play around with this a little bit to kind of make like kind of a fun or interesting visual. So this modulate by itself is not so crazy to me. Let's try out some of the other modulates. Scale. What? That's not true. Yeah. No, let's do rotate actually. Rotate. Oh. Not so crazy. The modulate rotate function kind of like rotates it, and it's not super exciting to me. Let's do. Huh? She's turning slowly. She's turning kind of like, you know. Let's add a little bit of color to it. I'm gonna add Q, which is one of the other. You can get kind of a list of the functions from here, as previously mentioned. You can kind of do shift. So I'm going to do that. Shift. Function. Math.assign. Time. Out is not defined because there's no dot. Okay, it's kind of like going, you know, back and forth a little bit. Let's make it a little bit more. Okay, that's too much. Now. One of the easy things to do, I think, is like turn things into like kind of a kaleidoscopic. So, huh? Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, shift does take 3 arguments. So let's just do that for.
Just the red channel.
Yeah. And then let's make this 3. And then let's make this 2.5. Whatever, 2.6. Whatever.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so a big part of it is this collide. So the collide kind of makes it, but without it, it kind of like, yeah, I mean, that's already kind of crazy. Can add the collide back onto it. Ooh. Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah. Which kind of has this like symmetric shape. Let's maybe make that smaller because I think it's a little too small. So there's a scale function. Whoops. Okay, well that's a little bit more interesting. Having all this texture. Let's add some more texture to it. Let's add a modulate noise. Collide is not defined because I didn't add the dot at the end of here. And then you can kind of just like kind of layer on.
It's so painful.
It's so painful. Okay, well let's get rid of the color. Well, yeah, there is a desaturate. But let's add like a layer, which is just a 0.1, 0.1. Okay, 0.1 is too big, so let's add 1, 2, 5, 10. Okay, I'm just kind of going through the scale of it all. And it's 1 means it's moving pretty fast. 0.1 means it's moving pretty fast. If I add it to 1, it's going to be pretty fast. If I add this, it's going to be more colorful.
256.
56?
256.
That's not how this works. It's not accepting integer values, unfortunately. I'm sorry. And then we can just kind of like keep on layering onto this more detail. I'm kind of just riffing right now. I have no idea what this is going to look like, but I'm just kind of going along with it. Oh wow, that's not right. Adding more modulates is a good way to add more detail to whatever it is that you're playing around with. So, you know, it can be a fun thing. Let's add some rotation and see if that does anything interesting. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Let's add a 5, 4. Yeah. If you give it a decimal, it will try to do some kind of weird version of it. So it's weird when you give it a decimal because it's split among across the top and bottom half. So I'm just going to increment up across the decimal. So this is 0.1. This is 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, 0.6. I personally think it looks better when it's rotated 90 degrees, so I'm just going to add that. Rotate. And then all the Hydra uses kind of the math, the radians versions of things, so. Which I think just looks better. So if you, okay, so I'm gonna go again through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, collide. So 1, it's kind of going up. 2, it's gonna be going 3. It's still kind of on that like halfway radius, and then you need to get to 1 before it like actually, you need to get past 1 before it starts going to the next level. So if I do 2, you need to get past 2. So if I do 3, it's got this 3-way symmetry to it. If I do 5, it's got a 5-way symmetry to it, but between 0 and 1, it kind of like does like a weird thing. So yeah, I'd say that's kind of like the intro to it. You can kind of play around with doing a lot of stuff. I want to try, what is this again? Source, out. We started from the shrimp, right? And then this Hydra, you know, and then, you know, as you add more layers to it, you know, you can kind of like create like interesting shapes, and you can kind of create interesting patterns there. So I think that's what Hydra is kind of good for, and you can kind of just like, and then the other thing that's cool about it is you can just like play around with it, and you can just kind of be like, okay, what is this giving me? Like, what do I want to do with this? What do I, what's fun for me to experiment with here? Like, whoops. So yeah, it's back here. This is the problem. So yeah, you can just kind of layer things on over itself. Yeah.
So I guess people often do this while music is playing.
Yeah. It would have been cool. Hold on. I don't even know if I have a speaker available to me right now, but it would have been cool for me to do this while music is playing.
It looks like it takes MIDI inputs as well.
Yeah, so if you look at the GitHub, it does take MIDI inputs. Let's try this, because I think that this is kind of aesthetic. But also, maybe it won't work. Wow. No. Well, yeah, imagine. We couldn't have imagined. But that's like kind of the gist of it. I would very much encourage like playing around with it because I really do think that you can get really fun effects like after like even just like pretty brief playing around with it, or even just like okay, so there's a lot of silly fun things you can do with it, and I think I'm at the close to the end of my time, but I'll do one last fun silly thing, which is to render the output of the screen itself back. So let's desktop capture. There we go, edit screen. Boom. All right, let's. Yeah, it's gonna ask me, hey, what do you want to capture? And it's like, let's do the entire screen. Sure. All right. Well, there it goes. And then you can, well, you know, it might be a little bit difficult to figure out exactly where your mouse is. But then you can, it'll do, and then where your mouse is, and not just where your mouse is. I can open a window here, and I can just be like, folder file explorer. Well, there it is on the fucking. Oh my gosh. There it is. It's moving around. It's all over. If I start typing things over here, and then you can feed this back into itself. Also, it's got a lot of power. I'm not gonna necessarily go into it, but
question.
How
do you know when you've like typed a series of commands where it's just like it's too much complexity, like it can't compute it? Like.
Well, it might just stop. You know, it uses the it uses the power of your computer. So if it can't handle it, then it just won't. Right? But also, I don't know. I think that's kind of like an artistic decision, right? Because so like I might, you know, some other people might be like, this is too complicated, but I might be like, I think it's fun to highlight things and then see like what effect that like adds to the screen or whatever. So it's complicated. I think it's not easy. I think it's, you know, you got to figure it out for yourself.
Is there a way to set the output without the overlay of the code?
Yes, there is. There is. There's a few ways to do it, but probably the easiest way is there is a function. I don't know it off the top of my head right now. I did not prepare it for this talk, but there's a function that you can kind of like just type out and run in order to just be like, don't show the code, just run the code. And then you can run it in JavaScript or whatever. I'll show you this because I think it's like not, it's a little personal because I'm showing you my Discord. But there is a Hydra Discord, which is very active. Let's look at something other than my personal Discord, which is the Hydra Discord. Yeah, almost anyone can get access here. There's this Hydra help and FAQ, and it includes things like, how can I live code Hydra without showing the code over the visuals? And then it gives you instructions here. Obviously, it's not amazing. It's so funny that like the visuals are changing as I'm scrolling, right? Yeah, so this is a great resource. It's a little unfortunate because I know Discord is not always a great format of resource, but it is a great resource for Hydra. So yeah. And then I'll also add, very briefly, I'm not going to actually show it, but you can hook up MIDI controllers to your computer in order to change parameters. So instead of, you know, like me having to sit here being like modulate. Yeah, no, I'm ready to leave. Instead of doing that shit, I can just kind of like set a parameter that will just make it work. So. Yeah, that's basically it. It's 1:30. Thank you for Thank you for bearing with me through all the technical difficulties and the documentation not being available online. But I do think it's cool, and I do think it's a neat tool to use. Also, I'm going to be doing visuals on Saturday, and if you are in the main chip space during Janus Rose's set, the visuals will be partially composed using Hydra. So if you want to see kind of like a live demonstration of like what it might look like after, more thought than, a few minutes of thinking about it, then come check that out.